Hi guys, I'm Sam from the Unity of Life. Welcome back to my channel, and thanks for sticking around and seeing what else I have on have to talk about on this channel, because there is a lot of interesting stuff that is coming your way, and still a lot that is in the works behind the scenes that's going on. So what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be talking about exotic animals and their specific nutrition, because I know that there are people who have exotic pets. So when I'm talking about exotic pets, I mean things like corn snakes and bearded dragons and geckos, those types of sort of reptiles or amphibian type of pets. I don't mean any stupid idiot that has venomous snakes or a lion or a tiger in their backyard. So I really hope that is not the case. We've already done a video on that. So obviously, what we have been doing is that we have been talking about nutrition, and we looked at a feeding plan, what it is, why you need it, and then we moved on to talk about different diets. So we looked at a vegan diet, and we also looked at a raw meat diet and the pros and cons to both of them, and we said that they were both really expensive, and it was something that you had to do a lot of research in. You had to talk to your vet, and there was a lot of things to take into consideration. So now we're going to be looking at the nutrition requirements of exotic animals. So we do have three main classes of animals that I discovered can be broken down even further. So you've got like carnivores, herbivores and omnivores, and then you've got things like frutivores and insectivores. So a frutivore is an animal that just solely eats fruit, and an insectivore is an animal that just eats insects. Carnivores eat meat, herbivores eat plant materials, and omnivores eat meat and plant materials. So so like I said, they do get a little bit more complicated, and there are other different types of carnivores. So like the insectivore was one of them. I'm not going to go through all of them because their names are really complicated and hard to pronounce, but basically they all eat meat, or they eat some sort of animal product, even if it's something that's just fish or just insects. Also, they'll eat birds and mammals. And it's again the same with herbivores. They again are split into groups as well. So like the frugivore, when I said they just eat fruit. Again, I'm not going to go too much into the names because they're hard to pronounce. But you have some animals that will only eat leaves. You've got others that are just eat grass. So back to the carnivore thing. Their diet consists of 80% of meat, 10% bone, 10% of any other material. A herbivore, they require 50% of carbohydrates, which is the main source of their energy, 30% proteins and 20% fats. And obviously vitamins can be obtained from fruits, and minerals which can be obtained from leaves and water. Omnivores, they eat meat and plant material, which we've already said. They don't generally get broken down. However, the breakdown of their requirements may differ by the species, and many eat more protein or less vegetation, or vice versa. So it's always like 80-20, so 80 meat, 20 vegetation, or 80 vegetation and 20% meat. Depends on the species. So vitamin D is an important requirement for all animals. It's something that we do generally get from the sun. And nocturnal animals will receive a much smaller quantity of vitamin D. Do we know how or why that is the case? Because see, this is where the whole vampire logic kind of goes out the window, because the light that you get from the moon is just a reflection of sunlight. So the moon itself doesn't have any light. It's a bit like a mirror, and it just reflects this sun. Because obviously we know the moon is up in one part of the world and the sun is up in another part of the world. So just because it's nighttime where you are doesn't necessarily mean it's nighttime for somebody else. So animals which have fur will not receive the required amounts of vitamin D, and so it has to obtain it from food sources as well, because the fur is blocking the skin from absorbing all the vitamin D from the sun. So let's look at leopard geckos as our first example. So a leopard gecko is an insectivore, so they just eat mainly insects, which with a requirement of 25% to 60% protein and 30% to 60% fats. So does anybody know anything about geckos in general? It doesn't necessarily have to be a leopard gecko. So the reason that they have so much fat in their diets is because their tails, you'll notice, are a lot fatter than their bodies. Their tails can drop off as well. They're clever. And the reason that their tails drop off is like an anti-predator response, and the tail will move even when it's not part of the body. So the predator will attack the tail, and the gecko has got a chance to run off and get away. Some species, their tail will grow back. Others, the tail doesn't grow back when they drop the tail. So you've got to be careful when you've got that as your pet, that you don't startle it that much that it does drop its tail, because its tail is very important, because that's its fat storage. So when food is scarce, it can draw on the fats that it has in its tail, and it can draw them up into the upper body and still be quite healthy until they can get some more food, or more food is available. So, energy. So a leopard gecko is a reptile, so it will get some of its energy from the sun when it is basking. So basking is just kind of like sunbathing, if you will. An animal like a reptile, they can't control their own body heat, so they absorb all the heat from the sun. They can't regulate their own body temperature, so but they also get some of the energy from the food it eats as well. So proteins, still on the leopard gecko. High protein sources of food for geckos include branded crickets, black-filled crickets, silent brown crickets, and brown house crickets. And I'm fed up with crickets because I did a lot of stuff on crickets at university, and they are complicated little buggers. Fats. So fat sources of food include mealworms, superworms, and waxworms. Vitamins. So the leopard gecko requires vitamins which are obtained from lean insects such as crickets, roaches, hornworms, soldier fly larvae, or the actual adult fly. And these insects are the best for gut loading. So gut loading is a method of ensuring the leopard gecko receives the correct vitamins by feeding them live prey with nutritious food, which will in turn be consumed and absorbed by them. So you're giving their prey, you're feeding their prey with nutrients and good decent food that's going to be absorbed when they get eaten by their predator. And the leopard gecko, obviously they need vitamin A, E and B1, as well as calcium dusting, because if you don't give calcium to a reptile, then they can get metabolic bum disease and their bums twist, and it's very unpleasant. So vitamin D is required, as this helps the gecko to process the calcium. Ultraviolet, you tend to have an ultraviolet lamp in there, that's 2%, but as a source of vitamin D as well, if you can't get them outside in the garden or the backyard or whatever it is you may have. Materials, fibre and dry matter. So leopard geckos get their fibre and their dry matter from the insects they eat. This is done through gut loading, which I've already mentioned what that is. In the case of minerals, the insects' food sources do not provide significant and vitamin supplements are required. Calcium is an important material for leopard geckos in captivity to stop deficiencies. And it also helps to strengthen bones. Calcium needs to be balanced with phosphate on a 2-to-1 ratio. The food sources are naturally high in phosphate. Supplements that you may need to give them is just vitamin and mineral supplements. So let's move on and have a look at a total different animal, total different species, and this is a mandrill. So let me just clarify, because this annoys the crap out of me. A mandrill is what Rafiki in The Lion King is. Okay, he is not a bloody baboon, people. There is a goddamn difference. Okay, that deep blue coloration that you see on Rafiki's face shows that he is a mandrill. Unfortunately, the detail that Disney missed out is that Rafiki should have a very bright, very rainbow coloured behind. Because a dominant male, he has that really deep blue coloration on his face, and I kid you not, Google it. Their bum, their fur on their bum is literally a rainbow. It looks like cotton candy back there. They're all really bright, like pinks and blues and purples. Okay, I kid you not. They have really fascinating colorations on their behinds. It sounds a little pervy, I know, but you really can't miss a bright, colourful rainbow bum. So check that out. Baboons, on the other hand, do not have this blue coloration in their face, on their nose is the male, and they certainly do not have a colourful rainbow backside. They have some species can have red backsides, but there is a difference. So while we're talking about mandrills, we're talking about Rafiki. So mandrills are omnivores, which means that their diet is varied. A large proportion of their diet is fruit, but they also eat other animals such as snails, birds, scorpions, and eggs. So energy, mandrills will get their energy from the sun, just like any other animal. And the sun obviously helps most of their food grow, especially if it's any plant-based materials such as fruit, which also has natural sugars, which provides energy as well. Proteins, so the source of proteins for mandrills, they include eggs, fungi, horrible 8-legged critters known as spiders, mice, snakes, tortoises, lizards, worms, frogs, snails, and bugs. Fibre, so fruits are a good source of fibre in the diet of a mandrill, and grass is obviously full of fibre. Vitamins, many of the required vitamins are provided from fruits as they're full of vitamins, and vitamin A, vitamin D is sourced from the sun, and vitamin E and vitamin K as well. For minerals, such as crabs, fish, mollusks, contain minerals and proteins. Not that mandrills have got access to be eating those types of foods. I don't know why that was there, but they also provide phosphorus, zinc, magnesium, potassium, sodium, iron, iodine, and calcium as well. So dry matter, mandrills get their dry matter from things like nuts, seeds, barks, herbs, roots, shoots, and foliage and tree bark. And supplements are required for minerals and vitamins, and they're to try and help any deficiencies in their diet. So they're just the two examples that I looked at that we class as exotic animals, because not everybody's got a pet gecko, and certainly nobody's going to pet mandrill. They're usually in the zoo because they can be quite vicious actually. So let's pair both of them, shall we, together. So all animals, both the mandrill and the leopard gecko, require water. So there is also a breed of horse that I mentioned requires a lot of quantities of water, and it's a wild species of horse, and it's a Welsh name and I cannot pronounce it to save my life, but they're like the only true wild horse species that's left in the wild. So much critical care is required as to the quality of water, including oxygen content, for amphibians and fish than the other species that were mentioned, but that I've already mentioned, so like the leopard geckos and the mandrills. So fresh water needs to be supplied daily for invertebrates, amphibians, but is not the case for an axolotl. Don't know why. Reptiles, birds and mammals, fresh water does need to be supplemented daily for fish. So if you've got fish, then you should be cleaning your tank out almost daily. Although partial water changes may be required for hygiene purposes or quality standards, because let's not forget, fish, they live in their water and they pee and poop in that water. So you do need to change it. So the gecko, unlike any other species, requires great care to be taken from live food sources, and that can take up some time, and it can obviously lead to a lot of expense. So actually I have on here, I also have like a table that goes through. So like I've got invertebrates, and I've got an amphibian, I've got a fish, I've got a reptile, I've got a bird, and I've got an exotic mammal, and that was the African snails, the axolotl, goldfish, I've got geckos, macaws, and these horses. And again, it's just looking at the different percentages of different things that they need. So yeah, so it's not something that's an easy thing to do. You've got to take in the species into consideration. There's obviously a lot more exotic species than just a leopard gecko and a mandrill, but obviously this is more in case if you work in a zoo. And so obviously animals do all need different dietary requirements, like we've already established in the other video. So that's pretty much all I have got today. Like I don't want to go too deep into things because, like I said, food and nutrition is not my area of expertise, and I am not an expert. And if you want to know anything more, then please do your research and consult a vet or a nutritionist for your pet. So if you've learned maybe something, or you think I'm just witted on it, it's not a good video, I don't know, and you haven't already subscribed, subscribe by clicking on my face, which will be down here. Don't forget to click that notification bell, and you will be informed every Wednesday and Saturday when I upload a video. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, pop it in the comment section, and I'll try my very, 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 very best to answer it. And if I don't know it, I'll still try my best to answer it, because I'll look it up for you. And don't forget to share this with all your friends, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.